What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Halftime Snacks podcast. This show features short interviews that you can listen during the halftime of your favorite sports events. Every Tuesday, I host fun conversations with talented people in the sports industry where we'll learn from their stories, knowledge, and experiences. So go grab your favorite snack and come snack with us. Are you ready? Let's go! I'm excited to welcome our next guest to the Halftime Snacks. This guest has a massive background in sports, including work in cybersecurity for Nike and the NBA. He's currently the CEO and co-founder of PredictionStrike, the world's first sports stock market, allowing fans to buy and sell shares of their favorite pro athletes. The company raised its first venture capital funding round in 2021 and has processed over $4.5 million worth of transaction on the platform to date. Expect from this conversation tons of insights in sports betting, investing, technology, and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Deven Hurt. What up, Deven? How are you, man?
Hey, thanks again for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, Deven. It's amazing to have you on the Halftime Snacks. Looking forward to this conversation. Of course, we're going to be talking a lot about you, about Prediction Strike, about what drove you to build Prediction Strike. But let's kick it off with an icebreaker, something fun. And I want to know, Deven, if there's a fun fact about Deven Hurt that you want to share on the Halftime Snacks that not so many people know about. Maybe a few people know about, but not many know.
Okay, a fun one. We've actually been doing these at work a lot. One of our employees he's always like, I just want to know about you guys. Just like, what are some random things that have just happened or things in your life? One I think that got him really, really good was I used to be very serious about playing chess. So I would enter in like the nationally ranked chess tournaments and things like that. So I really used to care about chess. I think that blew his mind a lot. So that's a pretty fun one.
Man, that's a great one. I'm actually also a very big chess player and fan. So, man, you make sure you leave me your chess.com username so that we play online sometime. And Devin, let's maybe talk more about how exactly you got involved into sports. What drove you? How exactly you first were interested in sports? Do you maybe remember a story or something that you want to share with us about that first moment that sports was something that pulled you?
Sure. I mean, I started playing sports, I think like a lot of kids did when I was like 5, started with soccer. And that was fun. So it started there and sports have kind of always been a part of my life since then. But how did I really get into sports as in terms of a career? I kind of fell into it. I wasn't planning on working in sports originally. And then through a professor, I was actually able to start doing that work for the NBA. And so that is what really made me decide, okay, doing a career in sports would be awesome. And so that I started looking at careers in sports that are different than maybe, I'm not obviously going to be a pro athlete or a coach, but what are some of the business adjacent careers? And that's how I started doing cybersecurity for the NBA.
That's so cool. And do you have like a specific, you think of specific skills, maybe 1, 2, or 3 skills that if you learned during your work at the NBA and of course your work later at Nike, which are two different kind of brands and kind of companies to work for, specifically in sports, right? One is more media dedicated and the other one is more sportswear and clothing. But I wonder if there's a couple of skills that you learned during your time at both those companies that build solid foundation for you for building Prediction Strike later on.
Sure. Yes. As you mentioned, those are both very different companies. An interesting thing about the NBA is while there is a central NBA, of course, all of the teams are very autonomous and can kind of do what they want. So a big lesson there is just in general people management skills, not as much managing, like telling them what to do, but a lot of coordination, a lot of organization. I mean, you have 30 different teams with their own entire support staffs. And even those teams will have different structures. So there's a lot going on there that there's just a ton to learn from that. Nike, kind of as you imagine, is a more centralized company, but it's also a huge company. Um, I forgot how many employees Nike has, but even if you remove the people who work in the retail stores, it's tens of thousands, just tons. It takes tons of people to make Nike work. So there were definitely some exercise and coordination there, but also you have to do a lot of just planning for the long term and planning for mass adoption of some sort of product or whatever the change is, because that change is potentially impacting thousands and thousands of employees or or millions of consumers. And so the attention to detail and the planning over there is incredible. And so that was a very good lesson.
Yeah, and something that I found super interesting is that you've executed roles for those companies that are probably not as common. You know, you may be hearing about people that did business development for the NBA, or that, you know, went into marketing and you know, worked on a couple of other projects with them. But you did cybersecurity. Would you mind talking a little bit about more about what that means for those listening that maybe don't really know what that means or are not very familiar of how exactly companies like those or brands like those could be interested in cybersecurity? I mean, it's not a topic that it's probably more it would be probably more interesting, or more not interesting, but I would say it's probably more common for companies that are in technology, say Microsoft or Google, which you also worked with, if you want to talk about that. But it would be probably more common to think that companies that are in technology are working in cybersecurity, and less the companies in sports. So why exactly you worked in that area, or how exactly, or what was the positions about, for those that don't know? Would you mind explaining?
Sure. So cybersecurity, at this point, I think we're getting to a stage where everyone kind of needs a cybersecurity um, team within their company. Every company is so internet enabled, and they have so much data that's stored online. And I mean, most companies probably can't function if they have a severe internet outage. The NBA, as you mentioned, is a broadcast. I mean, a lot of what they do is manage broadcasts and player information. If they get hacked, then either the broadcast goes down, or maybe people or maybe a lot of personal details about athletes are leaked, or contract details about people who don't want that information out, maybe addresses, things like that, right? If Nike, they have tons of consumers all over the world, so even a partial outage could cause them, I mean, they're losing money. They can't make sales. You can't make sales, you can't make money, right? So that is that. So it has become, I'd say it's definitely still an emerging field, but companies are more and more taking it seriously now, which is great to see. And I just love it. I mean, it's fun to do. It's something I started doing before I ever started working in sports, and so that's kind of how we got going. But here we are.
And then you wrapped your work there, and you immediately, I mean, you started PredictionStrike. So the first question, of course, that comes to my mind is how exactly you thought about it, right? Probably you were working with those brands, and you started realizing, oh, there's an opportunity here. Oh, those stakeholders could benefit from this. Oh, no one's doing this. Oh, there's this specific trend. So what exactly were the 4 or 5 thoughts that you collected during your time there that kind of drove you to understand the opportunity of PredictionStrike, and then immediately made you jump into it?
So I think it did start back when I was coming off working for the NBA, and I was about to start working at Nike, is when we first had the idea. So I was definitely thinking about sports, looking at sports a lot, which helped. And the idea came from a conversation with my best friend and now co-founder. We were just talking. Also, shout out to Brad, big shout out. We were just talking, and we were talking about the real stock market. We had always had a general interest in the stock market. We kept portfolios, but Brad had worked in financial services. I had not. So definitely a serious interest in the stock market. And Brad was complaining about some company that their stock was going down, and he just, it was also the NBA playoffs, and he says, I just wish I could put my money in LeBron. So we're like, okay, what would that look like? What would that feel like? And so we started what now is Prediction Strike with just us, just our friends. And from there, it blew up. And now we've of course grown into the company we are today. But it really just started with a conversation and just trying it to see if just to see what would happen.
And how exactly does it work, right? You say bet on a player. There's of course prop bets today on different, betting apps and companies that you could bet. LeBron's going to score more or less than 25 points, over or under, or he's gonna have X amount of impact on the game. How exactly does prediction strike works?
Yeah, so it's a different field than kind of betting, prop betting, and things like that. In short, each athlete has a share price. So say LeBron is $10 a share right now. Now you buy those shares with real money, and those share prices move based on two factors. One is how the athlete performs in games. So are they doing better than expected? And think of each game kind of like an earnings report. So if they beat their earnings, their share price is going to go up. If they miss, it'll go down. So that's one factor. And the other is, are other users buying or selling those shares? If users are, if more people are buying those share prices are going to go up. More people are selling, those share prices are going to decrease. That's to reflect the popularity, the supply and demand of those shares. Because I mean, after all, a big metric for an athlete is, well, how many people just like them? Can they sell jerseys? Can they sell tickets?
That's a very interesting point that you make there, because it gives it a very scarcity element, right? There's only one LeBron, and so you can only buy a specific share of LeBron, but if there's only one, right? So it really depends on how many people like him or how popular is he. But let's say that I want to become an investor, and I want to be able to maybe think about how to invest in specific players. How exactly should I be thinking about learning exactly maybe the intrinsic value, something that is intrinsic in stocks. We say intrinsic value as the fundamental value, right? As how much exactly the company is worth. So how would I go about figuring out what the intrinsic value of a player is? Is it figuring out how many followers they have on socials, and how popular they are on the media, and how much buzz there is around news when they make a big game? Or like, how exactly would you say or recommend people to go out and figure out the intrinsic value of a specific player?
Definitely. I would say start with just their performance. How good are they? So when I think that's where I would start, because that's probably where I would start with the company, right? The company, I'm looking at revenue. I'm looking at their stock price, because yes, companies can choose to split their stock price and sort of change the price that way, but that's a good indicator of how the company's doing, right? And what has their performance been over time? Are they getting better? So if they're a player, are you becoming more productive? Are you scoring more points, getting more rebounds? Or are you something that companies can't do? Are you suddenly in a better position for you? Which means, did you just get traded to a new team? Did the starter, were you a bench player and the starter got hurt? So now you are playing more, things like that really open up huge opportunities for players just instantly. I would start by looking there. And then you mentioned the social media kind of popularity aspect. That's huge for us. Just how much buzz is a player getting? Do people care? And that can have anything to do with having a huge game, having a terrible game. Maybe something happened on or off the field that they're just becoming known for. But buzz plays a huge part into it. And we see people trading off that. Trade news is another form of buzz, especially in the offseason. Oh, so-and-so gets traded. They're going to be, what does their new situation look like? Is it better for them? Is it worse? That's another big, just a big mover of share prices.
That's fascinating. I feel like the idea is quite of like disrupting how we think about specific things in sports, like players and the value of players and everything, and how exactly can we monetize that value, right? Until today, we only had betting and everything, but nothing really that specific. I wonder if players have skin in the game with this, if they are involved in some way, and if they can earn in some way from what you guys are building at PredictionStrike, or if they can't, or they don't now, but you have it in the future plans. Like, I wonder if you have that in mind.
Yes. So right now, actually, yes, the players can be involved. So we're offering players up to 5% of their market cap for really just helping us promote and becoming a part of our community experience. So that's producing content, talking to fans, doing podcasts, doing Ask Me Anythings. Those types of things are what entitles players are part of their market cap. So yes, definitely. Any player who we list is eligible. We've already moved forward with quite a few, specifically on the UFC side, and we're loving it.
Oh, that's awesome. And for those maybe investors that are out there in the stock market investing in Apple, Microsoft, Google, those kinds of companies that are maybe getting more and more interested about Prediction Strike with this conversation, they're listening and they're getting super excited and they're like, okay, I want to bet on Nikola Jokic and Russell Westbrook and everything, and my favorite UFC fighters and everything. But they want to understand what exactly is the risk profile and the expected returns, right? Because everything is a matter of risk and return. How much of my money should I spend on this? How much of my, what percentage of my capital allocation should be put on Prediction Strike? So how about you maybe explain us what the risk profile is, like how volatile are the stocks or the shares of specific players around the NBA or the UFC that you mentioned now, and how much returns could you expect from these investments, over let's say a 1 year period, or how exactly can an investor be looking at it from a return perspective?
Sure. For that, we've seen kind of things all over the spectrum. I'd say I think of our best players as kind of our blue chip stocks. So those are sort of like your Googles, your Apples, your Microsofts. They're going to kind of tick up, but a lot of the value is in those players who are just getting a first shot, or maybe they're not very well known. There's a lot of value in those, and we've seen players go up 400% in a year. And that's just ones I can think of right now. I'm sure there've been more. So you can make a very sizable return on these athletes, and a lot of users have, and a lot of users are loving it for that. So definitely, I would love for you to invest with us. In terms of your actual capital allocation, have to give you the classic disclaimer: just always be careful with anything that you are, just with any investment. Diversify as always, and just invest what is safe for you. That so classic disclaimer there, but there's tons of room for growth, and a lot of people have seen a lot of it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm of course correlating and relating everything that happens on the stock market to what could happen or happens already at Prediction Strike. Like, I wonder if there's going to be eventually like meme stocks. Remember GameStop and AMC and BlackBerry and all these companies. I wonder if eventually there's going to be like meme players, right? The players that just
We
go ahead and
saw that.
yeah.
Yes, we've seen some of that already. People are picking random players, and like we have a Discord that's pretty popping. And so people are coordinating and trying to get the share price to shoot up on those players. We've seen it. It's fun. I love the community around it. And that's what we want. We want a platform where users can act how they want, where they can, if they want to send the share price of a player up, they can. I mean, that's what they see as the value, right? Maybe the value of that player is just, hey, wouldn't it be fun if their stock price was all the way up here? And that's cool for us. Whatever you see the value is, that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure that, specifically Meta World Peace or Runner Test, one of the most controversial players in the history of the NBA, or Dennis Rodman also would have been very interesting to see, how his share price would have moved on Prediction Strike. But one thing that I want to talk to you about, Deven, is, the whole emergence of, NFTs and the new platforms that are coming up, the different types of regulations and compliance that the specific states are requiring for sports betting companies. Like, how are those trends? How are you looking at those trends specifically for Prediction Strike? Are you eventually looking at them to adapt yourself to them, or are you just looking at them as competition, or maybe threats? What exactly is going on your mind for around those specific trends? NFTs, the new platforms around sports, and the whole regulation and compliance area of that part of sports betting.
On some level, we are complementary, and on some level, we are competition. And so I think in terms of us being complementary, this idea of growing how fans engage with athletes and their favorite players and creating more ways for fans to use their money to do that and voice that is always going to be great. We want to see more of that. Like fans can express themselves and express their fandom besides just buying tickets, besides just going to the game. And we're seeing a lot of that, which is amazing. So we love that. But at the same time, yes, we are all competing for your discretionary income. We're competing for your sports dollars, right? We all are. And so that does kind of put us in competition. However, we know there are billions of sports fans on this planet. There are billions and billions of trillions of dollars that they're ready to spend on sports. So the markets are huge. So we are not fighting tooth and nail with each other. But we do have to be cognizant of each other. I have a great deal of respect for those companies and what they've built. But I just see our model as different, as separate. And I think there are gaps in the market that we can fill that they can't.
And what exactly is your vision, say 5, 10 year vision for Prediction Strike? What is your prediction for Prediction Strike?
Yes, we'd love to see Prediction Strike as the stock market for sports that is so linked to your sports experience as the stock market is for business. So when you're arguing with your friends about how good a player is, I want to hear you saying, well, this is their share price. Their share price is up this much. Or yeah, they're having a better year. Look at how their share price is doing. That's what we want. That's what we want to see. We want this. We want to see our ticker at the bottom of ESPN or at the bottom of the Champions League. I want to see like when they show the little infographic, hey, Neymar, $12 a share. That's what I want to see. That's where we want to go, and that's where we're going to get to.
And just recently, you guys opened UFC, as you mentioned. Is the plan for expansion like working on different leagues and teams around different countries, continents, or what exactly is your strategy for getting there to that vision that you have?
Definitely. So first of all, we want to expand within the U.S. We have some more U.S. sports we have to hit. Baseball is one of them. I know baseball is kind of a global sport, but the MLB is in the U.S. We need to hit and hockey in the U.S. But a fun one when it comes to other international sports is going to be soccer. We're adding soccer or football, depending on where you're from, in ahead of the World Cup. We all know how big the World Cup is. We're getting that out ahead of that. And that's when we're hoping to start bringing in people from other countries, tapping new markets and just having fun with it.
That's interesting. And how much of prediction strike do you think it is going to disrupt the traditional fantasy sports as we know it? Do you think that's going to change completely? Do you think it's going to follow the same path and it's just going to be, parallel to what happens and how we play it? Or do you think that it's going to eventually change the way we perceive fantasy games, by themselves?
I think it's going. First of all, we want to be biggest fantasy. Like everyone has a fantasy league. We want you to have every fan with a phone to have a portfolio. That is our goal. We want it to be that big, and we think we complement fantasy in a lot of ways. If you're drafting a player to your fantasy team, you believe in their potential for the season. So why not invest in them? Why not buy some shares? That's how we see it.
Nah, I love it. I love it. And coming specifically also from, a stock market background, and that I've seen how values change and the expectations change. I think that it could be really fun, to have it as a game, with our friends and everything. So I'm looking forward to that. Deven, man, it's been a fun conversation. We've been learning so much about you, about your background, about how exactly you came up with Prediction Strike. But the Halftime Snacks is also a place where we get to know you more personally. So I wonder if there's maybe one habit or one practice that you've been trying to adapt to your life that you maybe want to share with us that you think people should do more of or adapt to in their lifestyles as well, so that they can learn from the great Deven and learn how to become a better person or a better individual.
Yes, I think you have to do something in your life that takes you out of your routine and kind of puts you around just other people in a way that's different, so that you can hopefully help some other people. Because I think it's very easy in your life to to be like, all right, I have all of this going on and no one else in the world has anything else happening. And my life is so horrible because like this one inconvenience happened and it's really not that bad. So one of the big things I do that I just get to hang out with different people, have fun. I do mixed martial arts. I love it. It's a great way to keep myself on track, obviously stay healthy and just have fun. I think you do just need to do something different and get around some different people. It's especially now with most people working remote and things like that. It's very easy to get trapped in a very small bubble. So try and avoid that because it's not fun. You're not learning anything by just hanging out with the same people and hearing the same things.
Yeah, that's actually a great piece of advice. And is there one thing that you wish you knew when you were, say, 18 years old, young Deven just starting out? Is there some lessons that you learned maybe in business or in technology on your experience with working with, the companies that we mentioned? Is there something that you wish you knew, some advice that you would give your own 18-year-old Deven?
Yeah. One of the big things would be just whatever it is, just get out there and just build it, just release it. And the big reason I give that advice is I think it's when you're thinking about starting a new company or a new project, whatever, there's a lot of like tendency for people to start thinking, well, what if this goes wrong? What if they don't like this? What if this, that, and what if these 10 things happen? And usually you don't have that much to lose just by trying, just by getting it out there, by getting it to people and being like, do you actually like this? It's become very cheap right now and very fast to start an online company. If you were like, look, I want to build cars. Okay, that might take some time. But like if it's something that's internet enabled, it's pretty easy to just do it, to just go out there and start it. So I would highly recommend people do that and just see what happens. Look, I ran 3 startups before this, which all failed and went nowhere. And that happens. I learned a ton from everyone. And I brought all of that to here with me now. So definitely don't be afraid to fail. It's going to happen. And it might even be better for you, to be honest.
Yeah, that's also great advice, Deven. Appreciate you for opening up and sharing that with us. My last personal question for you, Deven, today is what's the kindest thing that someone has ever done for you?
Wow. The kindest thing. Oh, man. There have been so many. Oh, this is so hard. I'm going to exclude my parents purposefully just because I think that's a rather boring answer, to be quite honest. And I know my parents have done a ton, and I know parents as a whole do everything for their kids, but slightly boring answer. One would be our first angel investor. Her name is Laura Butler, incredible person, incredibly talented engineer, better person. And she's just done so much for me in my life. She was one of the people who actually encouraged me to start my first startup. And at the time, she was a distinguished engineer at Microsoft, so incredibly high up. And she took the time to really mentor me and be like, look, you can do this. You can start a company. And she was also our first angel investor in this company. And so she was someone who not only just with her time, with her energy, but also with her money has enabled me to do so much over the years. I met her when I was first when I was 18. And she's been a huge part of my life since then. And I really just can't thank her enough.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy learning about the business and technology behind sports, make sure you subscribe to the Sports Tech Biz newsletter. I'll leave the link in the show notes. See you all next week. Bye-bye.